your Mavericks get a win against the Chicago Bulls, and I say a very easy win, 127-92. Luka Doncic, unfortunately, his streak of 30-point triple-doubles falls. That ends tonight as he only has 27 points with 14 assists and 12 rebounds. Got up enough shots to do it, just didn't shoot particularly efficiently in that regard. Not that it was necessary against this Bulls team. You mentioned Kyrie Irving didn't have an incredible night himself either.
Yeah, but he was plus 12. Luka was plus 34. Kyrie shot from the field 2 out of 6 from 3 and 6 out of 14 overall, but he had 14 points. Usually he gets about 20 points himself. Didn't matter. They didn't really have to have those guys go off. 127-92. They had 44 points in the first quarter. It was 44-16. They never trailed, basically. But more importantly, Luka's assists were absolutely amazing. How much so? How about Dereck Lively had 22 points? He was 11 out of 12 from the field. He didn't even start. Daniel Gafford.
Yeah.
Gaff started. He's now 5-0 as a starter. He extended his streak, his franchise record streak of now 28 straight shots made in a row. He was 9 out of 9, and he was a plus 11. He had 7 rebounds. Again, Lively had 22 points. He was a plus 22. Gafford was a plus 12, plus minus. All those guys. P.J. Washington, a plus 19. He had 5 rebounds, 2 steals, 1 block shot. It was a block party, by the way.
Yeah, it was a lot of taking advantage of a size advantage, clear size advantage that the Mavericks have, which honestly it feels good, right? This Mavericks team had been a team that had been clamoring and longing for size for a long time. This trade deadline, they do that in acquiring Daniel Gafford and P.J. Washington. And so you see that come up against a Chicago Bulls team that admittedly they've had injuries, and the way that they're built pushes them to where they have to play pretty small three guard lineups where Ayo Dosunmu, Alex Caruso, Kobe White. 2 of those guys are pretty much point guards with in the low 6-foot range. Yeah. And then DeMar DeRozan, who is like a shooting guard when he came into the league playing small or playing power forward. They just didn't have a lot of size. And luckily, what I enjoyed is that you saw Dereck Lively and Daniel Gafford get involved in a big way. And
the beasts were feasting.
Yeah, they played a combined 43 minutes together, and they got the ball to them. We mentioned as you guys, Alec Medford and Blake Elliott, not Blake Lively. Blake Elliott.
She's handsome. Beautiful. She hangs out with Taylor Swift.
I feel like you can use the word handsome. I don't know.
Well, she's with Ryan Reynolds.
That is true. But you guys talked to Michael Finley, AGM of the Mavericks, yesterday, and one of the things he talked about is like the ways in which they wanted to have those guys who can get the ball to and let them figure some things out. And that was very evident. Even outside of pick and roll, there was just like that guy in the mid post, and then they just or maybe not even the mid post, but into the post or in the paint, and they're just getting Lively or Gafford the ball, and then letting those guys make quick movements to go and score points. And I like seeing more of that, them utilizing their size and appreciating it, because sometimes it feels like, or it has felt like early on in the trade, that they had that size, but they weren't fully accentuating it. It feels like they're getting better at accentuating it, admittedly against some teams that aren't that good yet, but at least they're utilizing it.
And they did not play with their food. That's what a lot of people were saying. Okay, yes. Yeah, they blew out Detroit, but they played with the food the first half. No, they took care of business right early on, and they also out-rebounded the Bulls 49-43. But here's a key stat. Going into this game, they said, okay, you can't get caught up with the Bulls game. The Bulls, even though they're not a great team, they're not a sorry team like the Spurs, Wizards, or Detroit. They're 31-34. So they're not a terrible team, but they like to slow down the pace. You think the Mavericks don't have a up-tempo game? The Bulls slow down the pace. To beat the Bulls, you have to keep it up-tempo. Here's a surprising stat I found that a lot of people aren't even aware of.
What's that?
You realize the Dallas Mavericks are number 6 in the league in pace. Mm-hmm. When you think about the Mavericks, you think about, okay, man, Luka likes to pound the rock and half court and blah, 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 blah. They are number 5 in fast point breaks.
Yeah.
Fast break points, rather. You're like, wait a minute, the Mavericks?
This year?
Well, it goes back to what you were talking about earlier, which is quiet as it's kept. Luka will sneak a ball past everybody. He gets the rebound. He will throw a full court pass. So it's not just running down the court with the ball. It's passing the ball down the court. And also, if there's a guy that's a big that leaks back there, guess what? He's getting his touches in a way. It's like, yeah, I'm happy even though I don't demand the ball.
Yeah, this year they've definitely leaned into the acceleration of that pace. But yeah, I mean Look,
but you had to do that to beat Chicago.
Yeah, and
you had to just run them off the court.
But I think also just like do the things that you need to do correctly. You're right in bringing up the Pistons game. I was watching that game. I texted a few friends in the general Dallas media and was like, look, man, this is a nasty game. If you watch that game, it looked nasty, and not just like the Pistons play kind of a nasty brand of basketball themselves. Or at least they are prone to it because they've got a lot of athleticism. And
they're very young, and they don't quit.
But they're not as polished when it comes to the basketball, especially like as a team, in the team concept of moving the ball well and not turn. It just looked nasty. Even if they would, use that effort, and that effort comes through, it's not all directed in one way. And so it ends up being kind of a very disjointed style of basketball. Except the Mavericks, you are the better team in this regard. You should not succumb to that, except a lot of times it felt very evident that they did succumb to that.
All veteran teams, and they say, okay, I just have to show up in Detroit. Mavericks aren't good enough to do that.
Right.
And guess what they did? They handled up on that game. We shouldn't dwell on that one.
No, they won it. But I think my point being, I want to see that you guys recognize that was a thing that you don't need to do. And in this game, at the very least, and of course, I'm not saying it's a huge thing, but it does matter that they came out and they immediately got to playing the game of basketball that they needed to.
Didn't you call yourself Nancy a couple of weeks ago?
I can't be a negative Nancy.
So let's
absolutely.
say this. We explained it from the beginning. They scored 44 points. It's 44-16 to start the game. I think they handled that.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And I'll give them their credit for that they went out, they did what they needed to do in that regard. And I was appreciative of seeing that. Jaden Hardy gets 7 minutes in this game, 4 or 5 on the field. And of course, he's getting cleanup minutes, mop-up minutes once this game is over. We've talked a little bit about, I don't know exactly how, and I want to make that very apparent. I'm not the guy who is just here yelling without, understanding the limitations here. But it feels like Jaden Hardy needs to find some minutes, or it would be nice, rather, if he would find some minutes. And it feels like this is the only time where you get to see that scoring prowess that he has appear, and maybe even like show you if he could be some level of palatable or useful to you is in these types of minutes. We were talking about this a little bit off air.
Yeah, there's a lot of fans.
Do you have anything in your mind?
Yeah, there's a lot of fans in media that feel that way, and I understand the frustration when you see a little something, but you really don't know what's going on all year long. You don't know about the matchups that the coaches are looking at. You just want to see that guy because he showed you something.
Yes.
You have no idea if it's the rotation, the way you want to use Dante Exum more. You want to see if you can break Hardaway out of his slump. You want to see if Kyrie can do. The whole point I'm trying to make is there's so many other intangibles that we just don't know what it is, and sometimes you find out later. I gave Christian Wood as an example because last year so many fans were so thirsty for Christian Wood. He's a walk-in bucket. He's 20 points a night. Jason Kidd is blackballing his career. No, you find out later. He doesn't engage in defense. Coaches were calling the plays for him, telling him where to stand during the games. He was late to practice. All those things that you don't know, and then you get. And this is what I found out from Rick Carlisle. He told me a Roddy Beaubois story. You don't know, and I'm not saying this about Jaden Hardy. I'm just saying we don't know the whole stories on all these things.
Yeah.
Rick Carlisle told me something after Roddy Beaubois looked great in a playoff game against the Spurs, and then you never really saw him again. They lost the Spurs, and what they were in, they weren't that good anyway. Spurs going to win that series anyway. And I said, how come you didn't play Roddy Beaubois? This season's over. And Rick said, you have no idea how you can lose a locker room by giving a guy an opportunity who didn't necessarily earn it. In other words, there's guys who are paid millions of dollars who perform in the fourth quarter. You got to give them the opportunity to win or lose the game, not a guy who flashed one time in a half of a playoff game. And I went, you're right. Because we don't know what practice looked like. We don't know what the coaches are looking like. We don't know about the matchups. We don't know about the other guys who say, wait a minute, I'm here and I've already won you a championship. How come this guy who doesn't do anything gets my minutes? And again, I'm not saying this about Jaden Hardy. I'm just saying there's things that we don't know. And again, I gave the Christian Wood situation. There are fans that think that Jason Kidd blackballed him out of the league. Wait a minute. Nobody wanted him. Nobody. And then he gets picked up by the Lakers. Oh, he's going to save the Lakers. Look up his minutes. Yeah. I'm just saying there's things. And this has nothing to do with Jaden Hardy as a person. We have no idea.
Understood.
There's just other things that are in play.
Absolutely.
As much as we may be thirsty for a guy that showed us something in a game.
Right. And I know especially with Tim Hardaway Jr. having kind of the slump that he's had, the idea was, hey, is there another guy that's kind of like instant offense in that way? Jaden Hardy seems to profile. So you would like to see if he has anything there. Also, just wanted to give a shout out to Dante Exum, Continue to rack up a little bit, some more minutes. 19 minutes in this one. 1 of 3 from the field. Not necessarily a ton happening there, especially when it comes to the three-point shot. However, those 4 rebounds, a couple assists, those are the things that kind of you think of when you think of Dante Exum on the floor, just kind of being a connector, making things come together.
That's that third guard who actually can give you some defense as well. There's some stats, some next level analysis stats. Istok Franco, he's over there in Europe. He's from Slovenia.
Yeah, incredible.
Great writer from DA Magazine. He has some next level stats about Dante Exum's impact on the game that are not just the numbers. And it's like, wow, the defensive rating for the Mavericks goes up.
And you can just see the way that Luka enjoys playing.
Yeah, and then Luka gets a guy he could throw in and actually make that extra pass.
So there you go. Mavs get a big time win. Well, they get a win, right? They handle business, 127-92.
Guess what?
What's that?
Next game Wednesday night, Golden State comes to Dallas, and Steph Curry's got a bad ankle.
Yeah, and so that's an opportunity to put a little bit of distance between the Mavs and the Warriors, and also hopefully give yourself another opportunity to move closer and closer towards that 6th spot, getting out of the play.
I mentioned this earlier in the crosstalk. The Mavericks have been handling up this year against the teams they're supposed to beat. They didn't do that last year. This year, their record is now 21-5 against teams who have a below 500 record. The rest of the games this season, I think there's 17 or 18 games left. They have a lot of guys, a lot of teams on their schedule that are not good teams. They have the 3rd easiest schedule remaining in the NBA. So you get to play Detroit again. You get to play Charlotte. You get to play Houston twice, Utah twice, Atlanta, and Golden State 3 times. And again, this Wednesday, we don't know if Steph Curry's going to play. So I'm just saying the opportunity is there for you to move up. Because guess what? Some of these other teams, they aren't handling their business either.